Welcome back to the All Turtles podcast, a show about the future of work, the future of health, and entrepreneurs building the future. I'm John C. Fuentes, co-founder of All Turtles. Today, All Turtles CEO Phil Libin and I are interviewing Allie Packard. Allie is a principal designer at All Turtles, and she's been leading the brand and design efforts for Mmhmm, our newest All Turtles product. She's here to walk us through how she and the design team created the Mmhmm brand and visuals from the earliest sketches through the finalized product that we see today. And we're joined today by Allie Packard, a principal designer at All Turtles. Did I get that right?
Sure. Yeah, that sounds great.
Allie, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here.
We're all in our relative remote studios. I'm in San Francisco. Same with Phil. Where are you joining us from?
I live in Los Angeles, so I'm in California, but a little bit south.
Cool.
Hey, Allie. Nice to talk to you.
Hi, Phil. Yeah, nice to talk to you too.
It's a important new chapter in my life today. I've decided that this is the day where I start learning how to play a harmonica. Yeah. So I have a quarantine project, and it's going to be playing a harmonica. And so far, I've got low C. That's all I got. But yeah. Stay tuned next week for maybe a D flat or something. I don't know.
Anyway, Allie, so what are you working on at All Turtles? What's your role here?
Yeah, so I lead the branding efforts on various projects at All Turtles, whether it is a brand refresh or building a brand from the ground up. I've worked on projects like Carrot Fertility, Sift, Sunflower Labs, Human Capital was one of them, Salty, and most recently, Mmhmm.
Cool. Can you tell us just about some of those early conversations in the Mmhmm design process in particular? Like, what's your approach? How do you get started?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember, I guess my first experience or exposure to Mmhmm was on an all-hands call. I think, Phil, you were using this product for the first time in front of everyone. I was definitely intrigued by it. And I remember messaging with a colleague, and we were like, what is he using? How is he doing that? So that was kind of my first impression seeing or experiencing Mmhmm. And then I guess going back to the first meeting I had with you, Phil, and broader team, I think that was a really important one that informed a lot of kind of decisions about the brand. So, gaining alignment on who the audience was and how we wanted to position this product. So I would say from that meeting, performance was really the main takeaway. So being a performer, putting on your own show, having fun, and being spontaneous was like a key takeaway from that call. And something that stuck with me, and Phil, I mentioned this on a lot of calls that we have together, but something that stuck with me and really informed a lot of the brand decisions was, if we're a show, what kind of show are we? And so thinking about street performers and, those guys that wear all silver on top of a box, or a circus performer or some kind of music festival in a park.
Not a living statue.
No. Yeah, but something with personality and life to it. But also like representing what we're not being this over budget, high production Broadway show. So from a brand perspective, continuing to think about that and keep that in mind was key. And coming up with something that's not polished or perfect, very DIY, maintaining that crafted and raw spirit was key.
Yeah, it's been a really fun experience working on the brand with you. I get just tons of questions about the brand, about the look and feel of it, about kind of the vibe we're going for. Yeah. And this is probably the most fun kind of brand exercise that I've ever been involved with. So definitely feel very lucky to work with you and Carlos and the rest of the team on it.
Same. I agree completely. This has been a really fun project.
So one thing I notice whenever I get a new build of Mmhmm, which seems like every other day right now, there's always like a fun, new, cool, what seems like an artist created background. how do you kind of normalize those? Like, how does at the same time, it feels very consistent. Like, I feel like I'm using the same product, but there is, a certain freshness of like this cartoonish background and that I'm living in right now, or, or being in a national park or being in a cityscape, but there's still a relative feeling that's consistent. Like, how does that all come together?
That's a really good question. So the room, so like the backdrop of what you see when you're using it. It's good. I think, Phil and I and team kind of work closely together to figure out, what kind of environments we want to create for people. So right now we have, fairly broad spectrum. We've got abstracted, colorful ones so people can be really expressive if they want, and then more realistic ones like, I think the canyon one that you're referring to, and a lot of realistic places. So of course we're all distributed and working remotely, and, I'm in LA, but if I wanted to, go to Europe or somewhere else, I think that's pretty cool, and some power that the rooms hold.
Yeah, and we're really expanding those soon. So there's an upcoming version is going to have lots more functionality about what rooms could be, how many we have, how you can discover them. So what's in the product now is very much just scratching the surface on it. It's been really cool to kind of dive into the upcoming future potential of this.
Yeah, a lot of opportunity. Rooms can be kind of an overwhelming effort in that there's so much that we can do. So
this product, it seems to have gone from like an idea to 100,000 person plus waitlist in a matter of weeks, like a few of them. What's that been like, putting this together so quickly? There's so many components to bring together to create this consistent experience, but something that feels very fresh and new. Is that a challenge to do it fast? Is it just kind of natural for this type of product?
That's so funny. I feel like it's normal, my experience working at All Turtles, it's like always pretty fast paced on all of our projects. But yeah, it's been nice. It's been, fun adrenaline, keeping things going. I think our first conversation about the brand was like early, maybe mid-June. And knowing that, we're at end of August now, we've come a long way. It's like borderline not possible, but absolutely possible because of the teammates that are involved. So Carlos, who is just a master in his craft behind, putting this brand together, and easily one of the most talented illustrators and designers I've ever worked with. Sai too, I want to, give them a shout out. They're a master in their craft and bringing this brand to life on the website, and everyone just kind of being able to move so fast together. And then on the topics of rooms, Inigo and Pol kind of changing the game with these very kind of dynamic, immersive environments that they've created that we definitely would not be able to have done without their support. And then, it's a big team like Chris, Gabe, Darian, Namika. I mean, Phil. So many people have supported in this effort in so many different ways. So props to the team with this timeline.
I think that the thing that's really important is to have the product not feel like it's a random assortment of stuff. Like it would be easy for it to just be, a bunch of different things all kind of piled up and clashing with each other. And like cutting through all that has to be the central through line of taste. It's like someone's strong editorial direction and opinion about what it should be. And so this kind of art director role that I think underlies everything. And I think this is the thing that I've enjoyed the most working with you on, is like, you're just really great at this. Like you can take contributions from, dozens and soon hundreds of talented different people, and yet the whole thing still feels like it's a cohesively curated thing, because like your strong opinion about what's good and what's not kind of flows through it.
Love that. Yeah.
Can you talk about the logo a little bit? This is, coming from someone who's definitely not a designer, not a brand person, but the logo is like really freaking cool. And I love how it looks in the tray on my desktop. Like I love, like when I'm off air, I just think it's cool. The Instagram posts, like, it's like, wow, this is, obviously I'm biased, but it resonates as just something cool. Like it feels like there's a very on TV aspect about this logo that I just really like. Can you just talk about that process or how it came to be?
My goodness. Yeah, that's so kind to say. Would love to talk about this. So I think if I were to go back to our first conversations we had about and that idea of a street performer on a soapbox kind of standing on a crate was something that we wanted to unpack further and kind of explore a little bit, like how can we visualize that? How can we harness that energy and idea? So that led us down this isometric path where we kind of looked at the logo in a cube form factor. So, going with the name, which is, the letter MMHMM, and playing with that on the surface of a cube was really interesting. So, if we're looking at this cube from the front, you see three surfaces. And when we put two M's on the side and an H on the top of the mark, the logo started to kind of tell a story on its own and kind of almost allows someone to put the pieces together on their own, this element of like discovery or, imagining what the logo would look like if it's turned and telling a full story. And I remember, Phil, when you popped into Figma and saw that logo variation and you had that aha moment of like, oh, this is awesome. Like it's telling the full story was pretty cool. So yeah, that's a little bit about kind of the logo development. And then I think once we established that mark as kind of the one we were moving forward with, pushing that into branded imagery was really, really fun. And we kind of used the logo as this canvas for us to be expressive. Like it turned into this mascot for the brand. So it's a really flat mark, right? But it has so much depth and personality to it in the way that we're kind of bringing it to life with different things.
I never actually thought of the logo as the mascot, but it's kind of interesting.
Yeah. I want one on my desk now. I want a totem for I'll know when I'm in
a little
not,
plush one. Yeah. Well, definitely a big part of the inspiration was the old like 80s MTV logo.
Yeah. It's like it's like TRL or something. Like I feel like I'm in an episode of there's going to be some music videos coming.
Yeah, I should say that was a big inspiration as we kind of continue to evolve, like the way that we communicate with each other in general. It's nice to look back and kind of recognize how things used to be. So throwing it back to the 80s, we were inspired by a lot of things, very 80s related, like old school TVs that had a bubble screen with antennas, or like the classic please stand by, like error graphics that you see on TVs, and even Rubik's Cubes, Slinkies. Yeah. And in terms of brands, MTV was definitely one of those, Cartoon Network. And then we were also inspired by an illustrator artist named Mike Perry, who, similar to MTV and Cartoon Network, just is able to have this really energetic and expressive vibe. And that's something that we definitely wanted to achieve as well.
What's been the process doing this all remotely? Like I know I've sat in some brand sessions with other people on the team, like Micah, leading these kind of interactive sessions where people are sticking stuff on the board and kind of coming up with different terms. Like how do you facilitate that? Not really looking at each other.
I know, gosh, that's a great question. I feel like it's interesting because I've been working with All Turtles for a couple years now, and I've always been this remote turtle in Southern California. And now that we're all distributed and remote, it certainly comes with its challenges, but I feel like we're able to collaborate and communicate with one another really seamlessly, especially with tools that we use. I mean, we're definitely a Figma family, and Figma continues to be such a powerful tool for us. So we can all kind of pop into one file, collaborate on it real time, share ideas, and also just, using other tools like Slack to communicate and talk with each other, like what features are being developed, what we're working on each week. So sharing and having visibility in that is critical. So
I remember in the really early days of Evernote, I had this thought that this was like maybe we had the product out for like a year or something, or even just a few months, and I kind of realized like, man, this is like it's become one of the very small number of apps that I just use all the time. And I try to enumerate like, okay, so what are the apps that I use like multiple times a day, every day? And it was, back then I was like using email, web browser, and Evernote. That was my daily routine. And I think Excel, because I was doing a lot of like fundraising and financial modeling or something. So I'm like, it's just one of these like main things. And I was thinking about that again a few days ago, and it's almost back to that spot. Like if I think about what are the apps that I use every day right now, like multiple times a day, it's Slack, Figma, Zoom, and
Yeah.
we're back into that like top circle, at least for me, of like just the constant go-to indispensable apps. And like that's become the remote working tool set, I think, for hopefully for most of us. Allie, one of the things that we try to do at All Turtles is work on a bunch of different projects. And I guess there's kind of two things to that. One is, sometimes you're working on a project that's kind of your own, and sometimes it's not, right? Sometimes it's for some other client. It's for somebody else.
Right.
And the second thing is you have to task switch. For the past, I think, couple of months, it's been pretty intensively, but there's other stuff that you got to kind of jump in and do. What's that like? What are the differences between kind of working on your own thing versus, working on something for a client and needing to get buy-in? And does task switching make you, more or less creative and productive?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think just for me personally, I'm used to task switching and working on multiple things at once, and I do enjoy that. But it's been nice to give most of my focus to over the past couple of months. And what's also really interesting is, I guess, not only during my time at All Turtles, but just in general, working on a project, I'm used to working on, something for a client. And so for in particular, I think, the client was kind of us, it was you. And it's not like, I had to prep a bunch of ideas behind some curtain, being all secretive, and then having a big reveal and a formal presentation with the client. I think, the curtain was pulled back and open through this whole process. And so I think, Phil, you being in the trenches with us, pushing it all forward and it being really collaborative made this really refreshing in its own way. And I liked this kind of casual setting of just brainstorming, what could be cool, what's exciting to us, what sticks out, what's a good idea. So I think for in particular, it's been a fun project to work on and very different in that regard.
So that's like actually a really interesting change, I think, because of Figma, right? It's like
Sure.
there are no more of these like big reveals, at least not the way that we've started working in the past year or two. Like everything is a work in progress and it's all pretty much visible.
Yeah.
Does that change things a lot? Like, are you like what, when you see, you're working on something in Figma and it's, nowhere near finished and, I hop in because I just go and look around and you kind of see me in there. Like, is that like, is that bad? Is that good? Like, how does that change how you feel about your job?
Yeah, it's not bad by any means. I think I welcome, extra set of eyes at any point in the process. I guess sometimes it can feel, a little violating to a designer that might want to keep something a little closer to their heart until they're ready to kind of show it to somebody. But
Right.
With you, it's a little different, and I totally welcome that. And I think for when you popped into Figma and saw the mark that is pretty close to what we're running with today, it was nice to get that energy and enthusiasm from you and know that was like kind of our front runner. I think, talking with Chris and Gabe and broader team and all identifying and aligning on like our favorite one. Yeah, it's nice. It's nice to kind of have that curtain down, and I don't mind it. It's not something that I always had in past experiences, but I think I'm getting used to it and enjoying it. So
yeah, that feels like that's going to be a big change just in the way people work in general. If like this concept of, everything's a work in progress and things are visible sooner than they otherwise would be. And, like that coming together with more and more people working remotely and working from home is like it's an interesting change, right? On the one hand, we're more isolated than we've ever been.
Yeah.
You don't have the same opportunity to just like walk by someone in the office and see something out of the corner of your eye and be like, oh, that's neat. I wonder what they're working on.
All right.
But to compensate for that, like, you could just go look at Figma and you can kind of see in real time what people are doing.
Have you ever heard the term hovering art director?
It seems self-explanatory.
This is, popping into Figma, I think, is like a different way to view that term now that we're all remote.
Yeah. And I like I think about that. I love just like opening Figma, right? And I just see all the boards. I can see like, which ones were updated last. And then I just like go and, when I have like a few minutes of free time, I just kind of look around and I'm like, I always think like, oh man, like if I walk in here and there's like, there's other people in there, I hope they don't like mind. But I mean, I guess if you really wanted to keep it private, like you could, right?
Sure.
There's like all sorts of provisions for doing that. But I'm kind of glad that most of the things in our Figma seem to be open, because otherwise I it feels like it might be debilitating otherwise. Like if we really did lose the serendipitous nature of running into each other in the office and we couldn't replace it with anything, like that could be really bad. But this way, it actually, I feel like more connected to what everyone is doing than back when we were in the same office. And yeah, and like you said, like you were never in that office. You were always, in LA. So
Sure.
that's got to be something you're used to.
Yeah. It's interesting with because we have so many different efforts going and running parallel at the same time. Like Marie, for example, can pop into Figma and see all of the brand mark visuals that we've created and then write copy for social media posts. And Phil, you can pop in and see something that might spark something or a different need or whatever. So it really, I think, is helping us more than hurting us. And I'm all about it. I'm here for it.
Can you walk us through some of the steps in the design process? Like, how do you go from, like, what's step 0 to step 1? And then what are the subsequent, million steps?
Yeah, that's a great question. There are a lot of steps to the process. So I think starting off, we want to figure out how this will be used and really considering those use cases for the product, and then who's going to be using this. So identifying our target audience, which is very broad, thinking about kind of educators, students, journalists, comedians, artists, and really making this accessible to everyone. And one thing for me that was kind of tough in the beginning was, keeping in mind this is not for businesses. This is not this corporate presentation tool. So that was something I had to keep coming back to because in relative terms, I'm like, oh, I can see how this comes into play right now for meetings and everything. But yeah, and then from there, just popping into kind of this concepting phase where we brainstormed and identified different themes for the product. So I think we were somewhere around 5 or 6 where we kind of leaned into and highlighted a different idea or facet of the product. And with those themes, we explored mood boards and kept it very high level with sketches. And then we dove a little deeper into logo exploration. So I would say hundreds and hundreds of logos were explored for various themes that we identified. Some themes, we stayed in more than others. I think there was a platform theme we had and an expressive theme that we had, and those were really the ones that we stayed in that lane very much so. Yeah, and then we down selected and kind of refined. We came to the table with, I think it was 7 polished systems. We wanted to get like a really good feel for not only what the logo was, but how it's paired with other elements of the brand. So putting type next to it, seeing what kind of colors work with it, using imagery, patterns, and different elements. And we also thought about, how the logo is going to come to life with motion very early on. So I think all of those kind of influenced our choices too in that down selection process. So from there, I think we were all really aligned as a team on the one that was working the best. I think they were all really great, strong options in their own way. And I would have been happy to have moved forward with any of them. But the output is kind of what we see today. And it was a fun process.
So I've heard this said by multiple designers at All Turtles in talking about brand, and that brand is very much a living thing. It's an evolving thing. And as we start to say work with more designers for these rooms, and as we start to acquire more users or add features, how do you expect, like, what aspects of the brand stay consistent, and like when what aspects evolve? What's that process? How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I'm not quite sure how the brand will evolve long term, but there's always room for change, and kind of we should continue checking in with ourselves on, is this still right for the brand and where the product is going, and does the brand continue to align with those needs? I think right now what's really cool is thinking about as a product. It's a stage where you can be who you want to be, you can say what you want to say, and brand is really an extension of what the product is. So, it is whatever you want it to be. And it provides kind of these unlimited ways for self-expression and so much flexibility to the identity. But yeah, I think something that we just have to continue to take a pulse on and make sure that the brand is aligned with the product. But I'm excited for the growth, and especially for the rooms effort, building out, more things as we grow.
Really cool.
Yeah.
Well, Allie, thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate the conversation.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thanks, Allie.
Thanks, Phil. Thanks, John.
This podcast is a production of the All Turtles Worldwide Media Empire. We recorded this episode at a variety of world-class at-home California studios. Thanks to Allie for joining us. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions for future episodes, send us an email to hello@all-turtles.com. Marie reads every message. Thanks to everyone who made this episode possible, including Jim Metzendorf for editing, Marie McCoy-Thompson for producing, Chris Plug for his audio expertise, Micah Rivera for our artwork, and Matt Ammerman for our theme music. On behalf of Jessica Collier, Phil Libin, yours truly, John Cifuentes, and the rest of the All Turtles team, thanks for listening.